One of the most frequent conversations we have, whether we're working with clients or athletes or even patients, is the old hardware versus software analogy, because tech devices are going to be part of your life for the rest of your life. And every one of them has a hardware component, the battery, the screen, the computer keyboard, and a software component, the operating system and the programs and apps that you use to run the thing. When you have problems, most of us just turn it on and turn it off. It's called reset. And it fixes a lot of the problems. I mean, many of the problems can be fixed on the fly. Very seldom anymore with our level of technology is hardware breaking down, and when it is, it's obvious. Even new vehicles, your cars, you're much more likely to have a O2 sensor problem in your car than an engine problem with your car. It's even the sensors that break down. Well, when we start looking at the human body, hardware is your muscles, your joints, your bones, your bone density, your fascial system, all of the hardware that must work together to allow and foster movement to grow and stay maintained with you. The operating system, it's not just in your brain, it's in every sensory organ in your body, your joint receptors, your muscle spindles, the sensors in your fascia. We've got so much feedback coming into the system that when we try to write a movement program, it's not going to listen to what you're saying about the way I should hold my back, because I got 7,000 pieces of information from my toes to my fingertips, to my neck position, to my eyes, my vestibular system, my auditory system. Every proprioceptor and skin tactile sensor is all telling me to do something different with my back than you're telling me to do in my workout. Once again, we're trying to change behavior without engineering or changing perception, amplifying it, magnifying it, or doing something. What I'm telling you is, we set up the entire principles and the tools in the functional movement system to be very sensitive to let you know when there's a software problem. How do we know? Well, it takes a long time for tissue to remodel. When we see strength training occur for the first time, you're doing software organization for the first 3 or 4 weeks of that before you ever get any change in tissues like bone density or hypertrophy. That's because most of us can organize a movement situation better if we're moving well and if we do it often enough to allow for healthy adaptation. Your first adaptation is going to be neural. Your second adaptation is going to be tissue. And so much of fitness is focused on tissue. And we don't have a good neural model. And if we get a great neural model, we'll see that often we can't even line up athletes and have them stand here looking at their structure and predict who's the best. We got to watch them move. And there's a lot of neural going on there. And once you're moving well and running good neural programs, you mold and modify your tissue in a good direction. How many gymnastics coaches have waited, even though your power's there, your fascial system, your skeletal system, and your ligaments aren't tough enough to handle the power you can produce? Muscles adapt quickly. Fascia adapts slow. Nerves adapt unbelievably quickly when we ping them with different sensory information. So with the FMS, our corrective strategy is set up to actually change movement measurably in a single session. Not thinking that we gain strength or power or anything like that, knowing that we just refined your timing and coordination. And under that new refinement is where we want you to develop that pattern. Same thing with power. We see a lot of people with a really, really poor power production in a jump. And we do something neural and then see it go way beyond warm-up, okay? Let them do the jump and just keep repeating that. That's a warm-up. Do something that doesn't look like a jump, but uses the kind of software, timing, and coordination a good jump should use. 1 session. You see that. When you don't, then you know they've plateaued in their neural adaptation and we can start offering them loads. But when I first see somebody who can't develop power production, I don't hand them a straight bar or a kettlebell, even though I love cleans and swings. I hand them an Indian club, or I get their balance right. I go light and I go fast and let you organize your power. And on that better power production timing platform, as soon as we plateau in our performance, our measurable performance, now we have justified the reason to add loads or move to a next thing that needs to be developed because this is good enough. Making our decisions in exercise should never be done without a test. I've always said this, don't you trust me, test me. Run the principles, run a system that honors them, or just use our system, it doesn't matter, and watch what happens. Most of what we're thinking is a hardware problem in the body, and most of the parts that we like to discuss ad nausea change on the fly. And if they do, the parts aren't the problem. The operating system is. If you see movement change on the fly with a good perspective, a good system, and good principles, you are programming the neural complex. You are not changing tissue. That's going to take 5 weeks to 5 months, depending on what tissue we're talking.
For more information, visit functionalmovement.com.